is Stoic by Nature podcast. I am your host, Jaden, and this is episode 3. Roll the intro.
In a world driven by noise, outrage, and impulse, clarity has become rare. This is Stoic by Nature podcast. Discipline and in a chaotic world.
Alright guys, before we continue, I just want to note a couple of things. Number one, I'm going to be starting to write a book. Actually, I'm already in the process. It is in the very beginning stages though. More specifically, it's going to be an autobiography. Clearly based on my life, my events. The reason why I'm doing this is a few reasons. Number one, it is a timeline of events so that my kids can look at, so that it is easier for them to understand me when they either have questions to ask or I have a story to tell. I can reference it in the book, and it is something for them to constantly look back at and find out about me, my past trials and tribulations. Twofold, it is also a demonstration on what not to do and how to achieve the right things in life. This is going to be for the young guys, girls, parents, children, brothers and sisters who are lost or know someone who is in that situation. So there's that. Number two, I have a clothing line. I'm sure many of you guys know. If you are willing or wanting to support the work or the channel or the things that I talk about, there are a few ways you can do it. Number one, head over to Shopify, look at the clothing line that I have. It is very cool. We've got some nice drip there. The link for that is down below in the description. Secondly, if you do want to have your questions, comments or thoughts read out, please use the banner below. PayPal, anything above £5 will be read out. Let's support the channel. It would go a long way. Let's create some open discourse. Third and finally is, if you see this video on any platform, please like and comment and subscribe. Having said that, let's get into today's topic, which will be discipline versus dopamine, or structure versus motivation. Now, for discipline to come to fruition, it consists of a multitude of things. First of all, mental freedom, or the ability to come across decision fatigue. Most people in general struggle to make choices when there are a variety of options, and because of that, a lack of choice is made, or it is hard to make a choice. So when you have a routine, and you'll see this with top athletes, they do not waste energy on deciding, do I train today? What do I eat today? When shall I go to sleep? Your schedule is already predetermined by that routine. This kind of structure, it creates a mental freedom in your mind, and it allows you to focus entirely on the performance rather than the setting up of the routine. Because you have this routine in place, couple that with the ability to act it out, or action, you can make your training autonomous. Athletes and competitors at the highest level, they use this for motivation, but you shouldn't use it for motivation. You have to bypass that. Regular people will use this for motivation, but athletes possess the ability to bypass that. Motivation is temporary, and when you create a routine and act on it, this creates discipline. Obviously, there are more things that go into it, but when you have discipline, this ensures that you train every single day or whenever you are scheduled to without the necessity of, oh, I'm not motivated, or I am uninspired, or whenever you feel bored or tired. It is irrespective of that. Of course, creating a routine and acting it out means that you create repetition. Now, being consistent and creating repetition is what gives you freedom of performance. So, the elites in any respected field of performance or sport or competition, it is all built on repetitive foundational work, things that are boring, things that they don't want to do, but it is the basis of how they are able to compete at such a high level. So, for example, like stretching or single leg exercises, stability workouts, fundamental guard passing drills, all of these coupled with repetition, it builds mastery. It builds mastery in said subject. Now, when you focus on that and you focus on consistency over novelty, meaning what is your baseline for performance? Focus on that rather than performing at a high level all the time. When you train like this, it alleviates the pressure of burnout, and you can focus on improvement rather than performance plateau. Now, of course, having said that, you have to sacrifice. Being able to act out a routine and do it every single day, of course, you're going to have to sacrifice some things, whether it be your family life, your home life, partying, fill in the gap. But in doing so, you create long-term autonomy. You're sacrificing short-term pleasures, things like unhealthy food, spontaneous trips, going to the nightclub, whatever it is, fill in the gap. But you will learn to invest in your body. This can ensure that you can compete at a high level for a number of years. Also, athletes use this long-term autonomy to practice injury prevention. Well, what do I mean by that? Well, when you exercise and do boring things such as mobility work, stretching, all of this is the stuff that is often looked over, but it is the most important foundation of how athletes are able to perform at a high level for a prolonged period of time. Now, all of this stuff is crucial for preventing and maintaining your injuries, which give you freedom to play over the long term rather than being benched or sidelined in the moment. Of course, that comes with being able to control your environment. So, for example, having freedom in your life is very indicative of controlling your diet, controlling your sleep, controlling your training, controlling how difficult it is. All of this is, you're often choosing your battles, right? You're choosing how hard it is, and you're also managing the unknown. This is going to mitigate the risk of chaos, regret, burnout, performance fatigue, etc. All of these attributes contribute towards being disciplined. Now, why am I talking about discipline first and not dopamine? Discipline because, me personally, I feel like the basis of all performance athletes, high-level guys, practitioners of any sport or competition, in order for them to work at a high work rate level for a long period of time, they have to be disciplined. How you do something sometimes is how you do something all the time. And if you focus or your priority is driven by when you feel like doing something, more than likely humans are lazy at heart, and it is not in our nature to just want to get up and go. There is forces at play that possess us to do certain things. Discipline is indicative of doing the same thing every day, regardless on how you feel. And that is the basis on why I'm using discipline first, because I think it is the be all and end all of physical and mental fortitude. Being free in your body and in your mind. So that's discipline. Let's look at dopamine and why it is unreliable when in comparison with motivation. Dopamine is used for a number of things. It's used for learning. Whenever you learn a new skill, that spike in happiness that you get, or intriguedness, that's dopamine. Whenever you're anxious, if you mix dopamine with epinephrine in unregulated levels, you create anxiety. But also, for the most part, and this is how most people understand or know of dopamine, is that it is the neurotransmitter of pursuit, motivation, and most importantly, the anticipation of happiness. So it is not happiness, it is the anticipation of happiness. Well, how do you come across that in everyday life? Well, that's fairly simple, especially in today's day and age. Society and culture and all of those kind of things are pushing things that give you small but regular dopamine hits, or big dopamine hits. For example, social media, TV shows, gambling, unhealthy food, porn addiction, the wrong type of sleep schedule, all of these things contribute to that. When you overindulge in these kind of behaviors, these quick hits cause down regulated levels in your receptors, meaning that your baseline is lower, but it also leads to higher craving levels, which means on one hand you're constantly thrilled, but on the other hand you have this forever needing propensity of needing more, and more is never enough. This instant gratification trap, it leads you to a lack of freedom, because when it is driven by dopamine hits, you're not acting by choice, rather you're responding to compulsion. So you'll end up for 4 hours on TikTok and you'll be like, how the fuck did I get here? Rather than it being your choice, you just ended up there. For example. So what is the path? What is the way to freedom? How do you structure this? How does it make sense? Well, for the most part, you have to understand that whenever you have a structure given to you, and also understand this, human beings, for the most part, we all prefer a routine that we can just follow, rather than us creating the routine. When you have that routine, it also creates that aspect of discipline, right? Which isn't about confining you or punishing you or any type of rigidity. But moreover, it is the highest form of self-love. It is a container for pleasure, if that were to make sense. It kind of allows you to do what you want to do with your time without being controlled by impulses. And that is what is the contradiction of ending up on TikTok for like 4, 5, 6 hours without knowing how you got there. So it creates that freedom or that liberty of yourself. You often do the things you need to do when you need to do them. That is the freedom formula. That is the freedom formula that is complete. That is made by discipline. The day will come when you'll be able to do the things you want to do, irrespective of if you want to do them. And that is the difference between being motivated and being disciplined. Motivation comes from, well, how do I feel about doing said task? Discipline comes from doing said task irrespective of how you feel. Guys, let me know. What do you think? What do you think will get any type of job or sport or role done better and to a higher standard. If you are disciplined about it, or if you are motivated about it. Or tell me what you think. Did you often complete tasks when you were motivated in comparison to being disciplined about it and doing it regardless on how you feel? And also, I will stand by this. Whenever I have not been motivated to go to the gym or to do a workout or to train, that is when, and only when, that I have had the best workout and the highest level of response in terms of practicality in the gym. Let me know. So there's a couple of differences as well, as I'm sure you know. People who chase dopamine, it is not often by their own knowing. Of course, they made the choice to do so, but they're stuck in that perpetual loop of, I don't know how I got here, I'm just going to do it anyway. These kind of people look for comfort, and they avoid long-term stress in terms of growth. These kind of people you need to stay away from. They are toxic and they will hold you back. And I stand by that. Moreover, disciplined individuals, they lean into challenges because they understand the bigger picture, and they understand that sacrificing today will create results tomorrow. Also, when you think about training in this kind of way, it rewires your brain so that you lean into doing hard things in a positive way in comparison to doing unhealthy things in an unpositive way. Now, of course, everybody is human, so there will be times where you don't stick to a routine, or maybe you're training 6 out of 7 days, or fill in the gap. Maybe you relapse. These things are normal, but I encourage you not to do so. I encourage you to stay on top of your game. Moreover, I encourage every man, every woman, every child, every adult to exercise at least 60 minutes a day, 45 minutes every other day. Whatever you feel like you can manage, I want you to be able to do that to the best ability possible and do it as much as you can. And don't do it because you want to do it. Do it because you know you have to. And this is why motivation is unreliable, because oftentimes we will sit there and say, well, I don't feel like doing it, so I'm not going to do it. Or you will talk yourself for hours and hours into doing it. The day's passed and the time's done. I take solace in knowing that by the time I wake up, I've planned my day. I've already done a workout and I've finished 90% of my chores before most of you fuckers wake up. That is the type of work that I do in silence. I do that in the dark. I do that in the morning. The first thing that I do when I get out of bed is drink water, I exercise, I take my supplements. That is unnegotiable every day. Every single day. The only time I'm not going to do that is on a Sunday. I take 1 day rest. Sometimes not even a day rest. Motivation is dependent on your feelings. Feelings are forever fleeting. They're forever changing. And this is why you should never ever rely on making a decision based on your feelings. Leave that to the females. Motivation is very high when you feel good and very low when you feel bad. Another thing is that it is temporary. As I said, feelings change. Feelings are forever fleeting. How you feel now is not how you feel in 20, 30 minutes. Maybe you started the exercise feeling good and realized it's a long day. All of a sudden you don't feel so good. All of a sudden it's easier to quit. It's easier to not do the next set, not do the last rep, not push as hard as you want to go. This is why motivation is temporary. This is why you should focus not on being persuaded to do so, but doing it because it is part of your purpose. You should always want to perform to the best of your ability. Look the best shape you can be. Feel the best you can. Operate at a level where people look at you and say, this person I can trust because they clearly look after themselves. Whether it be work, whether it be in the gym, whether it be in competition or any type of sport. Whether it be chasing a female or being courted by a man. Imagine relying on said temporary motivation. This is going to cause the start and stop effect. Depending on motivation, it leads to inconsistent behavior, such as stopping to smoke on Monday and picking up that cigarette by Wednesday. And for the most part, studies show that people who rely on inconsistent behavior, such as motivation, they will start a behavior saying, I want to start a diet. And they actually mean it. On that Monday morning, they'll start the diet. But because it is indicative of high levels of spiked dopamine, by Wednesday, they've reached a plateau. Their diet is no longer coming to fruition. Now, fill in the blank with whatever behavior you want. But it collapses under pressure. Life is pressure. When obstacles appear, motivation often vanishes. It is often obsolete under the pretense that anything resisting it will prevail. This leaves you in a cycle of procrastination. Do I? Don't I? I'll just do it tomorrow. That kind of bitch behavior. I'm not saying I haven't been caught there. A lot of us will do. My point is that you shouldn't aspire to prioritize any action based on that. You should do things because it is the right thing to do, not because you want to do it. And this is why discipline equals mental and physical freedom. It removes that decision fatigue, as I spoke about at the very beginning. Discipline transforms intentional effort into habit. When you make a habit, it is often created with a routine over several days, over several weeks. When you automate your behavior, you don't have to waste energy deciding whether to do it or whether to not do it, or how intense you do it, or when you eat or when you sleep. It creates consistency. It ensures that you show up regardless of how you feel, which is the only way to achieve long-term goals. It's not how you achieve short-term happiness, for sure, but it is how you achieve long-term goals. You can't have one without the other. It also provides control or freedom. Well, what do I mean by that? Well, if you are disciplined with your time, you gain freedom of your time. If you are disciplined of your finances, you gain freedom with your money. You can extrapolate that into any area of life you wish to. But also, creating that discipline in your life, it overcomes the need for excuses. For example, I didn't train today because it was raining outside, and because it's cold, my bones start to hurt and it's harder for me to warm up and go to the gym. Easy excuse to make, right? Rather than just saying, I know it's going to rain, I'm going to do it anyway. Not because anyone's watching, but because I'm watching, because God's watching. Because the higher beings at play here know that the right thing to do is to do what you need to do regardless on how you feel. This leads me to stoic restraint and why it's important to pick one thing over the other and have that foresight and that mental ability to put things into action. When you advocate for training your body and training your mind, you endure physical discomfort, heat exposure, cold exposure, hunger, exhaustion, all of this to build mental fortitude. The goal isn't some sort of aesthetic perfection or vanity, but is to make your body and your mind diligent and obedient. And it is only when you achieve this that you build the resilience needed to create a good training partner, not for yourself, but the others around you. This creates a healthy environment for you to want to train in. Also, your diet and your temperance to food. You have to choose food that is healthy rather than food that makes you feel good. So, for example, choose the nutritious food over the cake. I'm not saying you can't indulge every once in a while, but typically you should stay away from these kind of foods. You have to view the mastery of your appetite as the foundation of how you control yourself. Now, I just want to note for the record that most people go through life reacting to hunger as if a button was pressed. Hungry, hungry, hungry. And all they do is eat, eat, eat. Well, what if I was to tell you that hunger is just an addiction? For the most part. Not just an addiction of the body, but a dopamine spike in the mind. You have to see it as that. And also understand that human beings perform best when exhausted, when hungry, when deprived of such things. I never train when I eat. I always eat afterwards. I always find comfort in knowing that I can perform under pressure, number one, and achieve the highest results when my stomach is empty. I feel a sense of completion, knowing that I can eat, knowing that I've done the work. And sleep is as equally as important. Now, in order for you to stress your body physically and mentally so that you can repair and come back better the next day, the next week, you have to have a good sleep routine, as I'm sure all of you know. But you have to avoid extreme indulgence in sleep, and you have to have that balance. You can't just nap whenever you feel tired. You shouldn't. You shouldn't just stay in late in the morning and go to sleep late at night. You should generally pick the same time to go to sleep as the same time you wake up and stick to it. This creates a routine in your sleep. Therefore, all of the basis of your day and evening routines can fold around that. This is what creates discipline. All of these things together in harmony create discipline. Let me know what you think. Let me know how many times you acted in a state of motivation and how long that lasted for you in comparison to how long you acted in a state of discipline and how that worked for you. Or if you've never acted in a state of discipline, let me know. These are the kind of things that I will include in my book. I used to live a life based on motivation, no discipline at all. I was very poor. I was very broke in the pocket and in the mind. And I had loads of friends, but they were the wrong type of friends. I was doing things, but I was doing the wrong things. And I was, in fact, self-sabotaging my life in all areas. All areas. It was not only till I exposed myself to certain things, certain routines, certain mindset tricks that I was able to break free from bad friends, bad sleeping habits, terrible food decisions. Now, of course, I'm not perfect. We all slip up from time to time. But the basis of what I do every day is based on doing it regardless on how I feel. Always. Always, always, always. This is why you should act on discipline being freedom. You shouldn't see it as a job. I have to stay disciplined. Well, yeah, of course. Of course you do. Life is tough. Life is hard. It's not flowers and roses out here. It's storms and high seas. And knowing how to steer the ship over every wave is what's going to see you through to the next one. You have to break your chain of desire. Freedom isn't found in satisfying every craving, but in eliminating or controlling those cravings. Understand that. Having said that, guys, girls, like, comment, subscribe, and that will be all.